Welcome, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning. Happy holiday season over there in the US.
Mm.
Is everyone okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mm.
very good.
Thank you for joining us.
It's actually I sent you a couple emails about and asking some question.
It's very nice to see your face instead of an email.
Thank you.
I don't want to make everyone Buddhist, although you're coming and you're doing the zazen thing a whole bunch of times, so I assume you're quite interested in it. Um, from the Buddha's time, as Buddhism expanded more or less around Asia, three major divisions emerged. There is as we have them today, I'll just start there. We have Theravada, which is very close to the very original old teachings of the Buddha, the very first kind of original set of monastic rules and ethical guidelines. And then there's the Vajrayana, which is the shape that Buddhism took when it went into Tibet. And then there's Mahayana, which is how Buddhism formed as it went north into China and into Japan and Korea. And Mahayana is really quite big. There are a lot more Mahayana Buddhists than the other two, just by nature of China being really big and Korea having lots of people and Japan having lots of people. Inside the Mahayana, the rules are fewer in the Theravada, like in Thailand and Laos and Burma and Malaysia. Theravada is kind of the main style. The monks all wear very orange, saffron-colored robes, and they have a lot of rules. How many was it, Greg?
I want to say like 317 or something like that.
Yes, a wild number of very specific rules. If you read the old stories about the Buddha, it gets some of them are kind of funny. Like at first, the Buddha instructed his monks, do not do sexual things. And then it was like, well, okay, well then, well, they found a loophole, and he's like, okay, don't do sexual things with animals. And then he had to cover the next loophole, don't do sexual things with trees. And they got more and more specific. That's a really poignant, funny example. But in Mahayana, the rules became much more philosophical and multi-layered. And so we didn't, as a Mahayana, as the division of Buddhism, that there isn't a need for so many very specific rules. And now in the Mahayana, there are 16 bodhisattva precepts. I won't, right this time, I'm not going to bore you with the very specifics of all of those precepts, but one of the important values in Mahayana, in Zen is very much a part of that, is taking a vow to work for the benefit of all living beings in our lives. So when we take up the practice of Zazen, or we take up the study of Buddhist teachings, or we engage with a teacher, how we regard what we bring to the practice is that it is enabling us to create the causes and conditions in ourself and around us, like for the community in which we find ourselves, for all of us to wake up together, to achieve enlightenment, the unachievable. But the idea is that we work to set everyone free, and in that there are 4 vows of a bodhisattva. Well, does everyone know what the difference between a Buddha and a bodhisattva is? Connor, Chelsea, Do you have a?
Yeah. Isn't it, bodhisattva is a? I mean, the Buddha is Siddhartha. No, yeah. Yeah. Bodhisattva is it? Oh man, it's like it's kind of a realized spiritual being, or someone, a human that has gained, I don't know, some perfection of wisdom. Forget the exact.
It's a good start, Chelsea.
Isn't it the words, the actual teachings is the bodhisattva?
Okay, we have some clarifying to do.
Steve, you're muted.
Oh, it's okay. Steve.
Oh.
Bodhisattva is almost like Arahat, but he prolonged his enlightenment to help every being to achieve enlightenment too.
Yes. Did everyone understand that? So,
Could you say it again?
Yeah, one more time, Steve.
Bodhisattva, it's almost like Arahat, but he prolonged his enlightenment to benefit all living beings to achieve enlightenment.
Steve dropped a really good heavy word. Arahat is
I'm not familiar.
That is a Sanskrit term referring to kind of one of the original students of the Buddha in the first community of the Buddha, who by listening directly to Siddhartha Gautama, to the Buddha's words, achieved like a very, very profound awakening. And so that an arhat or also a Buddha works strictly, directly to awaken themselves through very intense it's kind of limiting how we live, like creating very narrow boundaries in which we operate in order to ride the line between suffering and pleasure, to find a very, very strict middle way. Like not sleeping laying down, for example, and only eating a little bit, only eating breakfast and lunch, and there's specific rules about how to eat and all this stuff. And of course, we have rules like that in Zen, in Mahayana, but a bodhisattva is, as Steve said, we say being, but it really means, in a practical sense, it just means a person who, instead of working directly for their own benefit, we work for the benefit of everyone, so that we're not working for our own enlightenment, we're working for the enlightenment of all at the same time. And the sort of mythological way of the way that it's spoken about it in sort of the Buddhist mythology is it takes multiple lifetimes to become an enlightened being. And if we just work for ourselves, we may become a Buddha. And a Buddha may teach and a Buddha may not teach, which begs the question, or begs the idea, at least in my own mind, that there may be fully enlightened Buddhas walking among us who just don't say anything. We don't know. They're already whole and complete and practicing the perfection of wisdom. And occasionally you get to notice how awesome they are, and you go, maybe that person is like that. But they don't say that. They don't preach it. They don't try to help anyone get it, because it's splendid. And whether everyone else gets it or not, maybe doesn't make a difference, because everyone will get it eventually. Might be why they don't teach.
Is that kind of like what you talked about of people who have who just seem like they practice Zen but don't necessarily have a awareness of it? Or
some of those people are fully, like, just, you can't describe the state in which they live. It's just different from everyone else. They might not even say anything to you about it, and most people won't notice unless you're sort of really practicing a lot of Zazen and you meet someone like that. And they're rare, make no mistake, they're very rare, but if you look around, you might notice some people like this. Teaching is hard. It's like banging your head on the sidewalk trying to get everyone to study their own mind and deal with the suffering that we all encounter in our own lives. So it's does everyone know who Sisyphus is? He's the Greek figure who tried to roll the boulder up the mountain.
Yeah.
You push it a little bit and it falls back down on you. You got to push it up again and it falls back down. Well, that's why there's this phrase, Sisyphean effort. It's something that you just can't do. It's really close to impossible. And in Mahayana, a person takes up a personal internal vow to work for the awakening of all beings. That is a bodhisattva. And those bodhisattva vows are very nearly impossible. And yet, that work is considered profoundly sacred. And taking up the vow creates an opportunity that creates the conditions for an individual to see every aspect of their own life as training, as sort of spiritual training or practice. Or in Japanese, the word for training is shugyo. And it's an interesting combination of two characters, which I may make appear here in the video that I post online. Shu is kind of like visiting, and gyo is iku, is go, or to do. It's sort of visiting every moment and doing it one moment at a time is a way to understand shugyo, which is the Japanese word for training, or what we tend to say in the West as practice. Of course, practice means doing zazen. This is the root. We have to prepare ourselves in order to meet each moment. And as we move from moment to moment, we are, if we take up the bodhisattva vows, there are 4 of them, then we find ourselves able to encounter every phenomenon, every relationship, and every object as a spiritual practice. So I'm going to teach you the 4 bodhisattva vows.
Okay.
And first, I will chant them for you in Japanese because it sounds really cool. So the first one is Shujō muhen seigando bonno mujin seigandan homon muryo seigangaku butsudo mujō seiganjō. So the first one is Shujō mujin seigando. Shujō means all living beings. The living beings are numberless. I vow to free them. It's an insane proposition in its own word choice. Living beings are numberless. How can I possibly free them? There are too many. Also, how in the heck am I supposed to do that? There is a practical answer. If anyone gets it, I encourage you to check your idea with me. Shujō muhen seigando. Bonno mujin seigandan. Remember that correctly now? If I'm not chanting it, it doesn't always come out straight, correct? So it's sort of a memorized with the body thing. Bonno is a Japanese word, kind of an archaic Japanese word, which means desire or delusion, kind of in the middle of all that, sort of the problems that cause suffering. We often say that when Zen monks are having a beer, we often say it's bonno, it's just desire as we enjoy consuming some thing that's technically maybe not we shouldn't do, but we do, as we're humans too. But bonno mujin seigandan, it means delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to it's like destroy. We just say destroy them is a good translation. So delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to destroy them. Also, an insane prospect. You're like, how in the world are you supposed to do this? And then the third vow is Homon Muryo Seigan Gaku. And Homon means Dharma gate. Dharma gates are numberless. I vow to enter them or study them. So the Seigan Gaku. Gaku is the character for study, or in this way we might study a Dharma gate is, in the sort of in the word gate, it presumes that one might enter. So we often translate that as we enter Dharma gates. And the last one is the most Buddhist of all of them, is the Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to attain it. So now I'm just assuming that you all agree that the idea of the Buddha way sounds interesting, then I never want to be proselytizing Buddhism. You should be a Buddhist. You should study the Buddha way. No. That's not Buddhism. If you start to say it like that, it's not Buddhism at all. But the Buddha way is basically taking up all of this work and studying and engaging together in a community, in a sangha, and discussing with the teacher, and considering and constantly readjusting your regard for the teachings that you have encountered. That is Buddha, or teacher, teachings, and community, the three treasures of Buddhism. If you kind of hold those in some important regard in your heart, then ostensibly you're probably finding yourself a Buddhist. But even if you don't need to identify as a Buddhist in order to borrow from studying the Buddha way. It's sort of more open than I think other religions tend to like to say their own practices are.
Could you say the fourth rule again? The vows.
Let's review. Can I say them all?
Yeah.
Does everyone
Yes,
want to hear them all? Okay. Once in Japanese and then in English, without my yammering in between everything. 衆生無変誓願道煩悩無尽誓願断訪問無量誓願学仏道無常誓願上. That's the four. And after each one, when we chant them, we almost always bow, touch our foreheads to the ground. So the first is beings are numberless, I vow to free them. Second, delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to destroy them or to end them. The third one is Dharma gates are numberless, I vow to enter them. And the fourth is the Buddha way is unsurpassable, I vow to attain it. In studying these vows of a bodhisattva, all it takes is to say, I like that. I think I'm going to try that. That gives you the qualification to be a bodhisattva. Welcome to the club. The whole of Buddhist ethics are contained in understanding and how you regard these four vows, because, well, addressing suffering in others and in self is contained in here. How we encounter every phenomena in our life is also contained in here, and what to do about it. That's entering a Dharma gate. And then the second point of delusions are inexhaustible, and working to constantly renew how we understand what we see. And I don't mean see with our eyes, I mean see with our whole body. That includes our mind and the way we conceive of things. always trying to find, is how I regard this accurate or true or helpful? Even if it's not true, it might be helpful. So then, true or not, it might be okay if it produces some favorable, positive kind of effect. So all of the Buddhist ethics are contained in here. And in that way, you can get there with very little information. And that's sort of the Mahayana, the third northern division of Buddhism's magic power. Is that you can do everything with very little. So, questions? Any reflections?
Can you expunge on the, I guess, the living beings are numberless. I found freedom. You said that's like, an impossible task. Is it just the goal to, is that like kind of a goal that it's just supposed to be unattainable? Like you strive to do something, or strive for perfection when perfection doesn't actually exist in reality?
Yes. We often, just to look at something physical, we often look at a gemstone and think, wow, it's perfect. Every facet is beautifully polished and what's inside the stone is crystal clear. And yet, when you look very, very close, you find that the stone has inclusions or imperfections. From a certain perspective, the thing looks perfect, right? A diamond or a ruby or a sapphire or something looks very, very, very beautiful. When it came out of the earth, it was just a, maybe a kind of slightly shiny rock. It wasn't even polished. It was just like, oh, this is kind of glassy, has some translucence. And then somebody takes the time to cut away or to polish away different areas of it in order to reveal the really clear and idealized, perfected core. Ultimately, that perfected core was always present, even in the wild form of that stone, of that mineral, right? And we polish away the outside in order to reveal something excellent on the inside. But no matter how excellent it is, we think it's perfect. It's actually quite flawed. And sometimes that's part of the beauty. Sometimes the color is its flaw. Sometimes there's a chip that just, you polish it and there's still that little divot. And if you took away the chip, it wouldn't be the same shape of gem, so it wouldn't be as cool. So you just leave it. And sometimes there are things that are built into the stone that have been there for, tens of millions of years. And well, that's just part of it. And so as we practice in our own lives, we take up the Buddha way, the fourth one, and we vow to attain the Buddha way, we bring along our personality. We bring along our own BS, sometimes our trauma, sometimes our hang-ups, sometimes our own bonno, our own desire. If you've got an addiction to something, or you've got you like candy too much, or you like beer too much, whatever it is, that, or you only eat white food, like a little kid or something. Well, yellow is okay because French fries are yellow, right? Little kids. If you just live your whole life like that, well, that's kind of a problem, ostensibly, but you don't need to be perfect. You can be wonderful and whole and complete just as you are, which is the idea. You try to polish it, but there's always going to be some imperfection. But you always try to polish it. And to sort of glide out of that into the English word we use to describe this sort of living our life as a practice of the Buddha way, practice. The word practice by its very nature carries the implication that you try, you fail, and then you try again, right? That's what practice means. So to a large extent, why worry about failing? Just try again, whatever it is. I'm not going to jump into the next thing until somebody gives me a question. Anyone got anything?
Sure, I have a question. Where does this commitment to humanity being better come from? Like, why do that?
That's a really good question. That question is indeed its own Dharma gate to enter. Like, oh, what does it mean to? Why do I need to do this work for everyone else? It's just the impossibility of beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Can we, if we just hold that for a moment, that combination of words, which carries meaning in your brain. There are a lot of living beings, and I mean more than just humans. This would include all the great apes and dolphins and whales and birds and all this kind of stuff. Cats. You can't free cats. You can't even get them to do anything you want. They do their own thing. But how in the world, I mean, Chelsea, could you tell Connor to wake up and verify that he has indeed done the thing that you have said?
I don't think so. Connor,
Yeah.
wake up. Prove it to me.
It's an impossibility. We individual cannot really directly affect other. Not by like wrapping our hands around someone's neck and saying, "No, this is how it is. You're deluded." We can't. That doesn't. It never works. On a global political scale, it's a good way to start a war.
Mm-hmm.
Telling people what to believe is terrible. Just on its face, never works out well. This is why we as Buddhists, there is, as a general rule, there are exceptions where people do it wrong. I'm just going to say that they've done it wrong. There is no conversion in Buddhism. We don't go around saying, "Have you heard the news? Have you heard about the Buddha? It's really great. You should try it." No, we don't do that. I mean, we have to create an opportunity for people to come in and check it out, which is, we have to be really careful. I feel really careful about that, even though Steve has clearly got some strong Buddhist interests, where, Connor and Chelsea were from the beginning not perhaps like identifying like, "Oh, I want to check out Buddhism." You're like, "Oh, hey, Eshin, my old friend, I'll come join your meeting and see what's up." Does that make sense? So with that said, trying to free all living beings is just on its face impossible, no? And yet there is a way. If you get it, I'm waiting for your message. Send me a note, call me, whatever, because there is a practical way in which we set all beings free. And if we take up that work as an individual, other people may also recognize that work is being done and then take it up too.
I mean, yeah, isn't that kind of the concept of being basically making yourself or working on Zen yourself, working on the perfection of wisdom, and that people becoming aware of that just by being around you, being a way to free them, or like doing the self work, improving the world around you. The only way to improve the world around you is to improve yourself.
You're headed in the right direction, Connor. Steve?
I think all four have very common base. It's impossible to reach, and it's the reason why we said this stuff, which one is impossible. It creates some continuation of our practice.
Mhm. Mhm.
Without perfection, without goals, because usually when you achieve your goals, you kind of starting stop what you're doing.
Yeah.
And another way, like all beings numberless, I vow to save them. Save them from what?
Mhm. Mhm.
From yourself.
Ah,
Has everyone got it? Yeah. 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 Good.
And of course, you cannot help somebody, save somebody from themselves. What you're
Mhm.
able to do, you're just working on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's radiate across the board. It's how I see. I can be wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And that I can be wrong is a Dharma gate. That is also the perfection of wisdom. That is also freeing living beings. There's like of all the wonderful things you said, Steve, I could be wrong, is probably the most Dharma rich thing of all. That's well, of course it's humility. We could identify that in sort of a normal everyday vernacular, everyday word we all know. Oh, it's just a humble way to regard the world, and that's really good. But there's this great, profound spiritual depth to that, which is a really important part of practice. To end all delusions, to destroy all delusions. Hoo-wee. That one, at least this week, I have been noticing and thinking. Well, I'm raking a lot of leaves around the temple where I work because it's the fall, and well, the leaves are changing and falling down, and we have to keep the garden beautiful, which is also a Sisyphean task. And I clean it up and I go, wow, it looks really beautiful now. And then I look up at the tree and I go, and yet there's more to come. And it occurred to me. I think most people kind of have a little bit of a scientific understanding of this. So a leaf is green because it absorbs all the other parts of light and reflects some parts of light that appear to us as green, or we identify as green. You kind of have does everyone sort of understand that? Like if you look at a red piece of paper, it's absorbing all of the light except red and reflecting it back at you. When we look at something white, if it's really, really pure, beautiful white, it's reflecting all colors back at us. In terms of light, the color mixing works a little bit different than pigment. And then something that's like pure black, like my robe perhaps, is absorbing almost every wavelength of light. And thus we identify it as black because it's not sending a whole lot back to our eyes. With that thought, all the things that we see and identify as this or that color are indeed identifiable as that color because they are actually not that color at all. So our delusions are built into the system with which we encounter the world. How on earth are we supposed to end them? Everything you see is a lie. What are you going to do with that? Literally everything you see is basically the opposite of how you, without truly understanding the phenomena of sight, is fundamentally incorrect, in a sense. It's correct, and yet it's incorrect. So we can see the world. I mean, this time I'm talking about eyes. We can see the world in this way that it's not as we think it is. that metaphor plays out on a much larger scale across all of our senses, and it also plays out in the conceptual aspect of how our minds work and how we regard our own identity as a self, because whatever we are is only definable by the boundary at which we meet everything else and everyone else. So, for example, we are meeting in this digital space and we are sharing thoughts and talking to each other. We are creating one another. Everyone is like, yeah, I'm going to be an upright Buddhist person. Oh, look, Eshin is wearing the Buddha's robes. He must be so perfect and enlightened or whatever. I hope you don't think that. But you might have this sort of a vibe among us, and it causes you to be a bit more upright. It causes you to use soft, kind speech. Although I like to use curse words sometimes. Sorry, Steve. I may some curse word may slip out sometimes. Yeah, I think that response meant, oh yeah, it's fine. But when we all sort of take up this idea of entering all Dharma gates, especially when we're with other people who are also doing that, we all make each other more upright. We're redefining, and clarifying our own, our each individual definition of self, the self with which we comport in the world. But the edge is non-existent without another person or another thing there to exist in, I'm going to say opposition, not juxtaposition. There's another word. Come on, English.
Contrast?
Yeah, that's a good one. Thank you. In contrast to, then we are not anything. If you were just born in space, with the body, let's just say you have the DNA and your form becomes like this human body. What identity of self would you have absent other identities to bump up against? A feral child doesn't speak because there's no need to speak a language. Or it evolves something very, very, very strange that's just not quite anything that it doesn't, the sounds that they make with their body and mouth don't transmit information the same way that ours do, which we are only able to do because we have been in contrast with other people, our parents in the beginning, perhaps, and other people who raised us and teachers who teach us. And then our own desires to be able to communicate, perhaps teach us to learn another language or to improve the language that we were born with. Everyone looks mentally tired right now. I've painted.
No, maybe we agree on some point with you.
Okay. And sometimes I drop something philosophically kind of heavy.
So, speaking of this knot,
Mhm.
how do you know delusion exists? Because it's always of opposition, not delusion.
Yeah.
And what is not delusion, we have to know what's delusion. And also, my delusion and your delusion is can be totally different game too.
This is
So
very,
everything is dependent of something.
very good point. Very, very good point. I wonder if we stop asking the question, what is this? Am I regarding this well? Or am I failing to notice this? Or In what way might this be true for this other person and not true for me? How to skillfully deal with that if we have to bump into each other. If we stop asking those kinds of questions, I think then we fall into delusion, where perhaps we can coexist, of course, with each other, regardless of our differing opinions, but perhaps we can coexist with our delusion as well. If you have a very good friend or a lover and you move in together, and a good friend does this too. You're not maybe sleeping in the same bed, but you are occupying the same home for a long time. You love the person. You agree to be with them all the time. You can be with them a lot of time, and it doesn't throw you off too much. And yet, big conflicts arise. Are any of the conflicts that arise a result of anything other than delusions? Your own or theirs, or your own, or mutually about each other? What was that, Chelsea?
I said probably not.
Probably not. If you're humble enough to ask the question, I'm fighting now. You might not, you have to practice being still. That's how you notice that you're doing the fighting. You're getting angry. You're holding on to an opinion. You're like, no, we got to put the forks in this drawer because this is the correct one. When you stop thinking the drawer is there, it's where you draw it out. You get in this weird space, but actually it's just an opinion. If you practice perfection of wisdom, zazen, then perhaps you become sensitive enough to notice, oop, I'm doing it again. We're doing it. Even if the other person isn't going to stop and say, I'm fighting. Maybe this isn't all that fun. This isn't all that helpful. They're just going to still continue fighting. If you can notice that you're doing the other half of the fighting, then you give that encounter an opportunity to play out differently. Oop. I might not be correct right now. I think you're right. And you just give that part of your holding your idea of yourself, like your rightness, just give it away. Let the thing evaporate. That sounds easy. It's not. But in that way, you readjust your regard for delusion. Once you realize that might be delusion at play, causing the trouble that delusion can. But if you don't, if a living being with a mind never sits down and sort of takes up the state of not doing anything, that is zazen, or sort of embracing stillness and silence, and then they become agitated. This is where and then they become agitated. If they don't do that practice, it's more difficult to notice that they're being agitated. There's a lot of people get angry and just keep being angry, and they just don't notice that they're just feeding the anger or feeding the internal conflict. Whereas if you do zazen, you know what it's like to not engage those emotional states. I think positive emotions also do this too. Falling in love, getting really passionate, all of that, that's not very much different from being angry in the physiological sense, of where you get driven to do something. Oh, I really want to hug you right now. Like that's the same thing as being like, I really want to punch you right now. It's not different emotionally. The outcome is usually different though. But if you practice stillness, you recognize that neither of those, well, one is more helpful than the other in some circumstances, but neither of those are actually encountering the truth wholly and completely. And if anyone remembers, Steve might know, I know that Greg knows, in the universally recommended instructions for Zazen, which is a piece written by Master Dogen, he describes Zazen as the Dharma gate of joy and ease. And this is in the fourth vow. Well, no, that's the Buddha way. Homon Muryo, the third vow. The Dharma gates are numberless. I vow to enter them. The joy and ease of doing Zazen is not the endorphin releasing joy pleasure thing that we get from like giving someone a big hug or having a sip of a nice glass of wine or eating a really delicious I don't know, piece of steak or something, like where you're like you put it in your mouth and then you have that rush of good feelings, or you get a big hug from someone you really love and you get a rush of good feelings. It's not the same joy as that. It's something other than that. It's more profound and more open and sustainable, more sustainable than you can't have the pleasure of putting steak in your mouth all the time. You get sick. You can't have the pleasure of drinking wine all the time. You become an alcoholic or you become Japanese. Japanese people drink a lot. So does that make sense? There is I was trying to put a couple of sort of loose things around to point out these 4 bodhisattva vows.
So, question.
Go.
お願いします。We have conflict because we all deluded in this moment. And I try to summarize what you try to say. And if we stop for a second and return back to silence and stillness, it's create basically what Dogen described and instruction for the Zen as this space, easiness and quietness.
Mm-hmm. Yes, perfectly well put.
ありがとうございます。
So I think that's, I'm going to say them one more time because then it'll be the third time I've said them, which is great because in Buddhism we say everything 3 times. Everything goes 3 times. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, or teacher, teachings, and community. So as the third time, Shujō muhen seigando, bonno mujin seigandan, homon muryo seigangaku, butsudo mujō seiganjō. Beings are numberless, I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are numberless, I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable, I vow to attain it. So loosely, if you feel amenable to those 4 things, then you're welcome to the Buddha Club.
Do you get a membership card?
No, we're too poor for that. Yeah. So with that, any last practical questions? Any questions for each other? That I think that's a fine thing to do too.
Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah, that does
Okay.
make sense as much as it can.
Yeah, as much as it can. Great.
Ooh, final question.
Sure.
Would you say that the bodhisattva vows, like each individual one in its own way, is a skillful mean, or like a finger pointing at the moon?
Absolutely. To encounter each vow begs of us to encounter with skillful means. The first skillful mean is to consider, is how I'm doing this skillful? What are the results that may come of my approach? That is the root of skillful means. And in order to encounter each vow, that question has to be at the root, at the beginning. It is,
Thank you.
yeah, in itself a Dharma gate. Just another one. There are a lot of them. Get in there.
Easton-san,
Mhm.
can you please practically explain how to return back to stillness and silence?
Okay.
Mission accomplished.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
Mhm.
It's a. I love this so much. When I was teaching in a Japanese middle school, well, in 6 different Japanese middle schools, I often took. I held. Well, I don't. Here's a pen. I would sit at the desk like I was preparing stuff, and I would hold a pen and just not move. So people, if they looked at me for 1 second, they would think nothing of me. They would not think I was doing anything strange or unusual. I looked like I was just thinking about the next thing, about to, continue working, or I was writing perhaps. Out of the corner of their eye, nothing is unusual. But in fact, I was doing zazen, completely still and silent. Just putting all of the thinking down, putting all the planning down, allowing this to come to rest for just a moment. You can do that anytime, anywhere. Walking, standing, sitting, pooping, it's all possible. If you're laying down, you'll probably fall asleep. That's why I didn't say laying down. But you can just, in the midst of a good conversation with a friend, just putting it down, everything down for just a second, literally just a second, is returning to stillness and silence. You get in a fight? And in your own mind, just put down the fight. The emotion's still there. The emotion might melt down. It might calm down just a little bit. The ocean is roiling, and then it does this. And then, what can I say next that's actually helpful? It isn't going to be trying to win the fight. 100% guarantee that's not going to be the answer. Make a different choice. But you can only make a different choice from after you have reminded yourself, this is stillness and silence. This is the silence. Anyway, that's enough of that. Thank you for coming, everyone.
Thank you.
Until next time.
Have a good week, everyone.
You as well. Thank you, everyone.
Mhm.